Second chance. I sat and waited. I knew her well after 14 years of married life. Yes, her need to control every situation would make her rush home, do damage control, overpower everything else. I lazily pondered the twist she would come up with. He had to throw her for a loop, get caught. She'd always been smart, scheming, planning, working every angle. I was the most straightforward. If I had something on my mind, it usually came out of my mouth, for better or worse. I tended to lean. She hated it when all her work and carefully thought-out plans went to waste. I usually gave her what she wanted, because I'm a guy, and guys don't usually sweat much. If it didn't break us financially or hurt our relationship, she got what she wanted. It made her happy, and then she made me happy, and then we were both happy. It didn't take her long to realize. I had this feeling that if I crossed a certain line, things could get really bad. I heard her describe it to her friend once when she didn't know I was around. I call it the magic moment, when he gets so angry that nothing matters anymore. Not his friends, not his job, not me. When he reaches that point, he can care less about what people think or whose feelings are hurt. I'll give you an example. He worked at his old company for 10 years. He got a promotion, good reviews, and everyone loved him. Then the management changed and brought in an expert. 2 weeks later, the expert made a suggestion that they accepted, and everyone's job was reorganized. Bob didn't care because he'd been there so long and knew almost everything. Then the expert pointed out that employees were paid about 25% more than companies with related positions in the field. So they were being cut to achieve parity. He was told his share was just under 5. He laughed at them and said, "Let me get this straight. You want to cut all of our pay because it will bring us down to the local average? What kind of effort do you expect us to make? The same amount or 25% less? One of the reasons this company is so successful is because it pays the best dollars for the best. You can't just come here and start working. I had to go through 4 interviews and physical and psychological testing before I was hired. You have a very strict attendance policy. Security rules. So why would anyone go through all that just to get a job when you pay no more than the place down the street where you don't have to work nearly as hard and get the same paycheck? Eventually you won't have any parity. You'll have mediocrity. Your older workers will leave to get better jobs or easier working conditions. Production will suffer. Accidents will happen. Morale will drop." He paused to catch his breath. There were 4 people from the corporation and an efficiency expert at the meeting. All of them were bright red. The decision stand said, "One of the corporate goons said it will take effect in 3 months. He smiled and said, "That's fine. That's more than enough time to find another job." He added, "Consider this my notice. The day the cuts take effect will be my last day." There was an uproar. The plant manager assured the corporation that he wasn't quitting. He was just venting. Imagine their surprise when, 3 months later, he walked out the door. They tried to get him to come back. They said they would inform all potential employers that he had left and quit his job already. He replied. 9 months later, he got a job. Most of the old employees had left, and many had come to work at his new firm. They invited 2 corporate officers to try to convince him to come back by offering him a nice raise. He laughed, wished them luck, and left the restaurant. Once he made his decision, he knew it was the right one. While it might have seemed like a hasty decision at the time, he usually thought long and hard about it. The financial cost didn't matter to him. He could live without money, but not without self-respect. I've heard that about 10 times. I tried to remember exactly when she started to think it was okay to have sex with another man. She'd tried to get me to accept a lot of things over the years. Now she was going to Cancun for 2 weeks with her friends, a couple who were on the verge of divorce and one who was married. She'd prepared It was a pretty good presentation. She said it would be good to get a break from each other and that it would make us stronger. I told her the idea sucked. I said that the thought of her in a foreign country on a beach with lots of alcohol in the company of a group of women, each of whom I viewed as a fool looking for rockets, wasn't really a good idea. But it's her life, so she can do what she wants. She just needs to keep. She'd internalized this as one of my key phrases over the years. It meant I knew she was wrong or it was a bad idea, but I was tired of discussing it. If she went any further, she'd have to deal with the consequences. One last thing. I want my rings. If you're going to extend to strangers, you're going to do it without them. She exploded and started arguing. I just sat there until she ran out of steam while you were talking. I thought of something else. You won't have time to rent an apartment while you're on vacation, so do you want me to put your stuff in storage or take it to your parents' house? She sulked, yelled, and refused to cancel the plans. 3 days before she was supposed to get on the plane, she came home. I went to an empty house and found a note. I've thought it over and decided I don't want to live here. You can go with a clear conscience, without fear of betraying anyone. Have a safe trip. Oh, and keep the rings. They have no value to me anymore. Her friends urged her to forget me and leave, but she spent 2 days trying to find me. I took some of my vacation and went fishing. I was wondering if she'd got on the plane when I made another cast, determined to catch that big fish I missed last summer. Then I heard the sound and figured you'd be here. Thanks for ruining a really good vacation for me. As you can see, I didn't go. I felt my rod shake. Maybe Mr. Big decided to play a game. No, I'm not happy. It's hard to realize that if I were. If you were a little weaker, you'd go away. You'd spread your legs and spend a hell of a lot of time knowing you had me under your thumb. Why are you here trying to ruin my weekend? It's not going to work. You know why? Because you won't be here. Go home. Go somewhere else. Just get the hell away from me. Since you won't go, I'll fire the PI and go to irreconcilable differences instead of adultery. It's so easy these days. We can do it in 4 months. Mr. Big appeared. He burst out of the water dancing on his tail. He weighed 8 or 10 pounds. Damn it. He pounced on me at that exact moment, swearing like a sailor. I was thrown into the water and Mr. Big relaxed a little, spitting out the hook and slapping his tail and heading back into the depths. She screamed and laughed. The water was just below my waist, but it was pretty cold for early April. I slowly stepped out. Now how about you talk to me? I don't want a divorce. I noticed she was dressed quite nicely, and that there was nothing under that short skirt when she went down into the water. Now she didn't look particularly sexy, covered in mud and grass. I saw that she was completely without underwear, and her nipples were sticking straight out, showing evidence of the cold. She started to climb out, gaining air in her chest as she started screaming. I pushed her back in as she rose to her feet again. I held up a hand and said, "Listen, don't speak if you open your mouth before I'm done. If you do, I'll jump in and hold you underwater until you stop bubbling." She nodded her head to show she understood. We both know that if I'd given in, you'd be sleeping with someone. If you want to deny it all you want, that's up to you. I hope your girlfriends are supportive. You will need friends. Maybe you will spend your time trying to steal men from each other. God knows they all ran after me, even though you and I were married. Now I'm leaving. Don't follow me. Don't call me. Don't resist me. When the papers are served, as I was leaving, I heard. She was crying and calling my name, which was no surprise. She was fighting the divorce, but I was confused why she'd hired such a good lawyer. He'd represented Edith Vine, who was known for trying to keep couples together. We'd also had to see a psychologist. I'd almost been issued with a contempt order for talking nonsense. This is just ridiculous, Your Honor. I don't want to save the marriage. I just want out. She's been very cold to me. Mr. James, you don't have to like it, but you have to go. I'd rather hear you participate. Do you understand? I was angry, so I actually said it. That fool was so full of it. I understand, Your Honor, but tell me, didn't you go to counseling with my late husband did that? And it helped. I seem to remember the divorce going through anyway. Let me ask you a hypothetical question, ma'am. If I told you that you were a terrible judge with no clue about the human condition, and if you lost by running for re-election, would that make you angrier because I dared to say that, or because I was right? I've never seen someone go like that. She went from pale to red and back again so quickly that she banged her gavel angrily. "Take this man and charge him with contempt of court," she said. My attorney and close friend jumped up in a flash. "Hold on a second, Your Honor. You're going to hold a man in jail for asking a hypothetical question. Your opponent in the race will eat that up. Please, he didn't mean anything." By it, he's right, Your Honor. It was just a question. I'd take it back. I just couldn't resist. Nevertheless, when you lose in November and become an ordinary citizen on the street like the rest of us, I'll be sure to find you and detail your abilities. Okay. I dodged the bullet of contempt, but she got back at me by upping the mandatory sessions from 6,000 to 12. The first 3 sessions were pretty rough for her and the therapist. I was really into reading at the time, so instead of responding with real words, I used quotes from books and poems. Shakespeare was a goldmine. His work had a lot of cheating virgins in it. They really got to me on the 4th session. Maybe I was tired, or maybe I wasn't as focused as I should have been. When she cried this time, I realized she really meant it. She did it too easily on some occasions. This time she couldn't stop. The therapist asked why I married her because I loved her. I knew what she was like. I watched her all through high school and most of college. She manipulated everyone around her to get what she wanted. That's why I never tried to date her. Eventually, she had to ask me out on a date. I went because I was curious. What would she want from me? I wasn't rich. I don't think I was that good. I wasn't into gambling, and we were at a party thrown by one of her friends. Her ex was there, and it seemed like she was trying to use me to prove that she could get anyone she wanted. So, he better submit. I realized this after about 3 minutes, and then I decided to have a little fun. I ignored her for the rest of the evening, dancing with her friends and flirting and groping, all while she was there. She was furious. Eventually, she pulled me outside and asked what I was doing. She said I was supposed to be with her and the other person she came with. She asked me to behave myself. She seemed shaken by my laughter. She said I was the scapegoat for her boyfriend, who she forgot to tell me she was still dating. I figured that since she lost the case, I'd humor her a little. She said she needed to make some new friends. It seems that friends' loyalty is not a virtue that is highly valued. I already have 3 numbers, and Sue informed me that after I take you home tonight, I should come back for a little private after-party. It seems that no one had ever talked to her like that before. She started crying until recently. I looked at her meaningfully, and I could never resist a crying woman. I told her I'd make a deal. She acts like tonight was my date and I'm her date. I went back to the house and she clung to my arm all night. We ignored everyone else dancing, only with each other after a while. We really relaxed and had a good time. I think she was really surprised when I left her at the door with only a little kiss. I had no intention of seeing her again, but she took me as a challenge. She slowly made her way into my heart. I told her right away that I wasn't into her games. We broke up a couple of times. So before she got the message, long story short, we got married. I had MS as a child, so it was possible I could have fathered a child, but unlikely. When we found out, I asked her to marry me, and she gave me a hard time about it. I wanted to adopt, but she kept making excuses until I realized it was too late. Looking back, that's a good thing, but the counselor said that she slowly reverted to her old habits and smugness. I suspect they were little things, but as time went on, things kept getting worse. She didn't realize that I didn't care what kind of car she wanted or what style of furniture was in the house. I didn't care about those things at all. If it made her happy, fine. But then she changed jobs, made new friends, and started wanting bachelorette parties at night again. I trusted her, so it didn't matter. She started coming home later and later, and one night she showed up at 2. She showed up at 2 in the morning, with her hair a mess, clothes crumpled, and lipstick smeared. It was the beginning of the end. She knew she'd messed up big time and apologized, saying she was drunk. It didn't go any further than kissing. I left her for 2 weeks, but she begged, cried, and swore she'd see a counselor. I gave in and took her back, even though I still loved that stupid fool. I still can't say why things got better. She realized she had control issues and really worked on them. She changed jobs. Once again, I found myself jumping from the frying pan into the fire. In my opinion, if the last group were easygoing, this one was the opposite. Gradually, she got along with them. Then, the bachelorette party started up again, and the Cancun story came up. I looked up the resort, and it catered to singles and people with alternative lifestyles. I had no doubt that if she was one, she'd come back a woman of. She'd broken her vows, which really upset her and ruined our entire vacation. I tried to talk to her, but she just used platitudes and nonsense that came straight from the cheater's handbook. I reached my limit and gave her an ultimatum. Stay with me and try to work on our marriage, or go ahead and come back for the divorce. She refused to cancel, so I packed up and left before she did. I guess she must have had a mental breakdown. She had a mental breakdown because she never got on the plane. It was too late by then. I started the procedure, and here we are. She's sorry, and she's going to counseling. But is it enough? Has she learned anything? Can she change? I don't know. I took her back, hoping for the best. Why? Because deep down, I really did love her. But I made her pay. I held her in a tight grip and made her sign a post-nuptial agreement. The wedding contract said irreconcilable differences. It was 50-50ths. She was unfaithful and the guilty party walked away with the clothes on her back. It was killing her. She loved the house and all her toys, but she knew this was her only chance. We were good for a couple more years, and then she started changing her clothes. It was so gradual that I didn't notice at first. It was little things, but as she sped up, I realized it. I noticed her smug grin, especially when she thought I couldn't see her. I called the detectives 2 weeks later. They gave me their findings. Unfortunately, I wasn't surprised. Peter Cummings was the little weasel she'd been working with. The report said he was just a gigolo looking for rich older women to subsidize his lifestyle. I guess I didn't like his eyes. He looked at her Mercedes, the car, the rings, the hair, the money. He flattered her. She gave him gifts. He must have been good in bed, as many times as they dated. I never saw them together or asked to give a report to the lawyer I chose. She broke the camel's back with a straw. I waited until I knew they were together and sent her a text. Emergency. Come home, don't send messages. She called me back 3 times. A few minutes later, she called me back. She was breathing heavily and said, What's wrong? It's not really an emergency. I just wanted to drop by and say hello. I told her, I'm divorcing you. Have Peter follow you. You can leave your car and he'll help you pack your clothes. Leave your jewelry on the dressing table along with your house and car keys. There was dead silence for a few seconds until she came to her senses. She asked, What the hell are you talking about? I told her, I'm talking about the post-wedding contract. Remember that document you signed to prove how unfounded my lack of faith in you was? I'm talking about you sleeping with that guy for at least 3 months. I'm talking about you being in room 334 of the seasons naked, except for a garter belt. What color is that? Is it lavender or purple? Live and let live. It's not always easy to know what's going on here. I could call you a woman of easy virtue, but I won't because you pay for it with your little gifts and loans. I could see her looking around wildly trying to see the cameras. She'll never find them. Tell Peter that the leather strap he's wearing looks it's completely ridiculous for a man of his age and build. There's a site on the internet called Fun Farm that has some pretty ridiculous pictures. I just posted them about 20 minutes ago. I just got famous. He doesn't need to thank me. I'll be right there. Please wait. I'll be right there. Please. I can explain. My curiosity got the better of me, so I grabbed a glass of my favorite wine and started to wait. I heard her pull up her heels and tap quickly on the walkway as she ran in. She looked around wildly until she saw me in the study. I had started the fireplace and found the fire soothing. She came slowly towards me, and I stood up. Sit down, I said, pointing to the chair I'd put across from the couch. She sighed, as if to complain about my tone, but then sat down anyway. I poured wine and she nodded, staying silent. I poured a glass, handed it to her and sat down again. Give me a second to get. I love stories, but they tend to put me to sleep, so if I doze off, forgive me. She was about to give me a sharp reply before reason intervened. Honey, you know I love you, don't you? She said. She was quiet, waiting for my answer, and when I remained silent, she continued, I'm so sorry. Peter was a mistake, but I told him that when I left. I'm sorry. Maybe you'll do better with the next one. Her anger came out. Shane, you're no help here. I laughed. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to help. How? Find another lover? There are a few guys in the office who might be interested, but most of them have pretty high standards. High standards. Maybe we could get your nude pictures back from Peter and I could show them the good stuff. I could do a review. You're pretty good when you want to be. Do you think that could work? She went pale, wondering how much I actually knew. She was pretty stupid in my opinion, letting her lover take nude glamour shots of her. Please stop being mean to me. I'll tell you what. I'll do it if you just tell me why. Why are you being so stupid when you could lose everything? I don't know exactly why. Let me give you an example. Do you remember a pair of Nike sneakers I've had for years? They're past their prime, pretty worn out, but they stay on my feet so well that I can't bear the thought of giving them up. This is what my love for you is like. Tough, comfortable, and I will never leave you. When you see a pair of red 4 in heels in a store window, you know they're not practical. They'll probably hurt your feet if you wear them too long, but you know you'll look and feel sexy in them for a while. These shoes were fun for a while, but I couldn't wear them every day. Do you understand, honey? It was just a fling, a little stagger in heels, knowing you could go home and wear something that made you feel good. Do you understand? I stood up. I think I understand. Thank you for explaining it to me. I walked over to the hall closet and grabbed my jacket. She followed me. What do you understand? You're not throwing me out tonight, are you? My lawyer says I can't make you leave until the papers are served. Even then, I have to give you a reasonable amount of time to get your stuff. He suggested 2 weeks, so you'll probably be fine for 2.5. Maybe half a week, maybe 3, but you won't be able to sleep with me. I'll be a gentleman and move into the spare bedroom. I know how you like that customized shower you told me to install. Her jaw dropped. I continued, I'll tell you what. If you don't make a fuss, I'll help you find a nice. I'll help you budget. You've made decent money, but you've never had to pay your bills, so I'll help you get used to it. You probably won't have anything left over for spa visits, expensive lunches, or shopping trips, but if you save money, you can afford an evening out every 2 weeks or so. I'll even find you a decent used car, but you'll be responsible for the insurance. Whether or not to take it is up to you, but either way you'll be out. I reached into the hall closet and pulled out my favorite black. I was wearing a vintage fedora straight out of the 60 Seconds. My uncle was a hat collector and left me all of his hats when he died. There were 31 of them, all in perfect condition and stored in their original boxes. They fit me perfectly. I got them at a time when they were just coming into fashion. I thought I looked good in them, and so did many of the ladies in my office. My wife said I looked silly in them. I set the right angle and opened the door. She was still trying to comprehend my words. We need to keep talking and try to figure things out. It's 10:000. Where are you going? I took her hand off mine. I was shoe shopping. I think I'm going to look at something young and sporty, or maybe I'll find something in cool Italian leather. If I can afford it, I'll probably get both. Don't wait up for me. I laughed as I pulled away, knowing she'd hit the speed dial button of my phone. It would ring. She should hear it clearly on the kitchen table. I ended up getting both in one package. She was leaving me in the dust in her 6. In heels, 10 years younger, she was smart, sexy, straightforward, and didn't play games. She was a guy goddess I idolized. She walked on the ground. I bought her hats for birthdays and anniversaries. I have over 50 now. Gwen tried to resist, but when her lawyer looked at the prenup, he urged her to accept my offer. I didn't want her Mercedes, so I sold it. I took half the money and bought her a 4. She ended up with a year-old little Chevy. She even thanked me. She got married a couple of years later, and as far as I know, we don't run in the same circles anymore. They seem happy. I know she was in treatment for quite a while. There's a funny story. I actually went to court when my divorce was finalized. Even though my attorney said it wasn't necessary, I bumped into the judge who handled my first attempt and ordered us to counseling. She was just a regular townie. She was there during her second divorce. I was almost accused of contempt because I couldn't stop laughing.